All right, look, thank you. And a warm welcome to everybody for our Escalate Learning Design Special Interest Groups May session. We have a few things to update everyone on, so thank you to everybody for joining us today. So with my co-leads, Kashmira, Dave, and Keith Higgart as well, we are looking at running a few sessions on hackathon sessions, which we will provide some updates on that. But we do want to just highlight that this year's Escalate 2023 conference will be held in New Zealand. It will be fully hybrid, held between December 3rd and 6th. The theme will be on people, partnerships and pedagogy. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone there, or the program will be a fantastic event as well. Today's webinar will be recorded and will also be published as well. Now, before we begin, we do want to recognise the traditional owners and Indigenous cultures. So on behalf of our special interest group, we would like to acknowledge the owners of the land and also the waters on which we are meeting here today. And for me, I currently reside on the beautiful Bunurong lands. I pay my respect to our elders, past, present and emerging, and extend the respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as well. And feel free for everyone to make an acknowledgement in the chat area. So welcome. Just a bit before we get into Peter's presentation. Our special interest group, we have made a slight change. We are on LinkedIn now. We've joined forces with the Australian Association of Learning Designers. So we're on LinkedIn. We have a group. We've just made it public as well. We do invite everyone warmly to join the group online. You'll build valuable connections with other like-minded learning designers, educational developers, academic developers, those who are interested in the learning design space as well. We'll be looking at advertising events and activities. It's a place to share practices and insights and your experiences. We'll be posting materials. There'll be others posting materials as well, and job opportunities. So it's really an informal place for people just to connect in this space as well. So please feel free to join that, like the page and participate. So we're there. Now, one of the things that we've been mentioning that we want to start up as a new initiative, this was based on feedback last year that from our members, we wanted more hands-on activities to work with each other, to collaborate, and also to look at ways that we can build our capacity within the learning design area as well. So we have looked at putting in some dates. So we're calling this Learning Design Hackathon with the design thinking lens, working together to pretty much look at cases, design issues, and working together, because we know that our members and also in the learning design sector as well, we have a variety of different expertise, different disciplines as well. These sessions are free and they are open regardless of whether you're an Escalate member or not. So we are running our first pre-session induction an hour next week. The dates are listed there. We are looking at 3 online webinars as a hackathon. So they're 1.5 hours. They'll be facilitated. We'll be looking at getting some case studies, a problem statement, and we'll be working together to hands-on problem solve issues in this space. We are looking at 2 hybrid sessions running all day between 10 to 3, looking at hosting a session down at Sydney, but again, it will be hybrid sometime in September, and also in Melbourne as well as a hybrid session. So again, this is free and it's open to anyone, learning designers, educational developers, course directors, or educators in any space. And we will be providing more information about this, but please, there is a QR code there. Please feel free to register there as well. We're here to help. And this is based on feedback from our community as well, as a way to really look at ways that we can work together, build our capacities. And also it's the audience would be for any learning designers, depending on whatever level you are at. And if you are an experienced learning designer, we welcome you as well to join the group as well and get in contact with us. If you are keen to look at helping us facilitate or coordinate this, feel free to get in contact with us. We are a group looking at supporting each other and building up this learning design area. Okay. Without further ado, what I'll do is pass this on to Kashmira to introduce Peter.
Hey, thanks, Lian, and welcome, Peter. I'll only talk about my experience with Peter, and my relationship with Peter goes all the way to 2005, Peter, if I'm not wrong. So, welcome. I'm immensely proud to welcome Peter as our speaker in this session. Peter is a professor at the Sydney University School of Education and Social Work. His research encompasses educational computing, knowledge-based learning environment, e-learning, evaluation and assessment in computer-based technology, and research methodology. He has experience in design and evaluation of hypermedia systems, simulation environments, and intelligent tutors for teaching and training. And in the evaluation of multimedia authoring programs, Peter is also founding member of Cool Futures. Just say a bit about that, Peter, when you start talking. And consortium of education, innovation, and sustainability education in Australia. So this today's webinar is focused on artificial intelligence as a captured learning designers' attention, promoted by its potential for automated essay scoring, and more recently for essay writing. ChatGPT, everyone knows. This presentation is on different kind of AI and different uses. It's about knowledge or meaning-based AI rather than data-based AI. After describing this difference between knowledge, technology, and machine learning, Peter will briefly explain how knowledge technology have been used in formal educational and e-learning settings. And then provide some examples. So over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kashmira. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. You basically gave my talk, so we can jump right into the discussion. But I'll say a couple of more things. But the Cool Futures, just for everybody, it's a new thing, or semi-new, where we are basically a couple of more or less senior, more or less retired academics that have an interest in environmental education and in particular climate science education, from not only education background, but also from climate science, social sciences, etc. Sort of, come informally together. We form sort of a loosely connected network with a website where we try to provide also some resources and increasing number of resources for climate science education, primarily in K-12, so for schools, primarily in secondary schools, because in primary there's much more available and much more going on than in secondary. And also try to inform practitioners, that is teachers mainly, and educators about research on climate science education.
So anyone can join, Peter?
Yeah, I'm happy to inform you. You can send around the link. It's, definitely be happy to have more learning designers on board to help with that. There's many things that need doing, and just recently, and I'm happy if you send me an email, anybody who is interested in that, we just produced a report for the Australian Academy of Social Sciences, ASA, on a state-of-the-art report of climate science education worldwide, which is sort of ASA's official contribution to climate science research in the education space. They look at it from a number of other economics, law, psychology, from a number of other disciplines. All right, but that's not my my talk today. Also very, very close to my heart. Let me switch to a slide view. I'll be using the pretty ugly raw Google Chrome tab with my slides, because I want to switch occasionally to something else that doesn't live on slides, and I hope that's okay. And these things are viewable. It'll be pretty much hands-on. I'm myself not a learning designer, but I'm interested in learning design from a research perspective, and in learning. My background is in psychology, educational psychology, in particular. I got really drawn into knowledge technologies, in particular the ones I want to talk about sort of since COVID. I've had plenty of time. Remember COVID? No social events, nobody distracting us from whatever we were working on, and so I spent a lot of time during COVID sort of getting my head around some part of AI, which I'm trying to speak to today a bit and show some examples. So it will be pretty much hands-on. It's only 40 minutes, and I guess I see my main task in evangelizing a bit about the potential value of knowledge technologies in the educational design learning space. And if you have any more interest, do let me know. So what I want to do in about 40 minutes is put knowledge technologies in context, in particular in the context of AI, artificial intelligence, as an umbrella term. I want then to introduce one scenario, likely not two, because time will not allow, but plan B. One scenario for a student activity that can be supported by knowledge technologies and is supported. So it's an existing application that's available for purchase. And then we'll also spend at least as much time on a use scenario for knowledge technologies for learning designers, for instructional designers, for people like you. And yeah, then we'll have, I think, 10 minutes for discussion thereabouts. So when I speak about learning, or how do I use the term knowledge technologies, is actually nothing new about them, but they have been a bit niche. So if, and this is sort of the a good, I guess, comprised overview of knowledge technologies in the sense I'm using them, and the sense they're used in AI as well. So there are things like RDF, RDFS, there's a SparkQL, which is a query language to retrieve knowledge. There's concepts of machine reasoning and machine logic and proof. And all this is supposed to contribute to trust, and that in the sense that users of knowledge represented in these forms can trust the knowledge because they can inspect the reasoning that led to conclusions and to recommendations and whatnot. On the top of that, then are user interfaces that serve for particular purposes and shield the end user, if not the designer, from the more or less technical foundations. Now, just to make sure I'm not preaching to the already converted, for any of you, maybe in the chat or so, or through voice, for any of you, is one of these or all of this daily part of your daily work? Is it something you know about already, have read about, are familiar with? And only if somebody says yes, I'll do a little quiz, and then you can leave. Okay, so far it's all new and no, and hence new. So okay, so I'm not preaching to the converted. At the same time, it just confirms my conviction that we in learning design and in learning technology should know more about these technologies, or this technology stack, because believe it or not, it has been around the last 20 years, right? And it's actively developed under the label of semantic web, and more recently linked data, even more recently knowledge graphs. And it's now getting mainstream because Facebook, Google, Binge, the search engine providers, plus the social media, giants are using these technologies in the background. So, for instance, if you use Twitter with an API, so if you use Facebook with an API, through an API, you'll talk to Facebook's knowledge graph, right? Which is essentially using this stack here, typically up to the level of RDF and RDFS, right? Yeah, so nothing new in a sense. Technically, also has the advantage that all these things are very well developed, mature methods and technologies that are built on open standards. So this is all controlled by the World Wide Web Consortium, right? It's documented and put in canonical form and in open form for anybody to use for free and in a standardized manner around the world. So these are neither niche things nor are they new things or immature or cutting edge in a sense. So very stable and very established. Just not used that often in the context of learning management systems, e-learning, and learning design. So let me give you some examples down the road how we might want to make use of that as in our space. I almost thought I'd start my presentation with saying I will not talk about ChatGPT. Kashmira asked me originally to give a presentation on ChatGPT. My gut reaction is no, I'm not doing that because just mainly because I would have very little, if anything, new to say to you. I'm sure by now your university, in your context, there's been plenty of communication around, how to use ChatGPT with students or not, and all that. If you basically follow any news over the last months, you'll have plenty of opinions on it. Won't talk much about ChatGPT because I really don't know much enough about it to say anything new that hasn't been said already. At the same time, it is a nice segue into my topic because ChatGPT also uses knowledge technologies with the stack method stack that I just showed you, right? So it has its own knowledge graph that it uses to drive its bot interface because knowledge graphs are now a core means that underpins chatbot interfaces. At the same time, ChatGPT is much more, right? And if you go into details, you basically say, well, that would be, a deep dive and a long dive because it's very mathematical and very advanced. So it uses, of course, very advanced natural language processing technologies, including production, and of course, a huge repertoire of machine learning algorithms. I'm not talking about ChatGPT specifically, but the kind of technologies that I'll be talking about a bit are part and parcel of the solution stack that the folks behind OpenAI, which is of course not open at all, but a commercial company, are using in a way that is so advanced that I'm, have no insight in it, nor will I, because it's closed and commercial. For commercial use. One last slide or two that explicitly mentioned ChatGPT. So what we, I guess, have emerging in the last months, if not, for those of you maybe following the story longer, it's not that new, but fairly new, ChatGPT, that is. So the basic, so I guess use case now is for ChatGPT is that whoever a user and an education, university, higher education, the user is a teacher, is a student, a designer. We are sort of invited to use ChatGPT's knowledge base through a chatbot interface, right? And I'm sure you all played with that by now, and I start using it in some ways, but not so much for teaching. We know that somehow ChatGPT gets its knowledge from mining the internet and whatever's on there. as do the other search engines as well, right? And then it does something very clever in the middle, which we have no access to because it's a closed knowledge base. And we are invited to interact with the chatbot, basically facing a challenge of question engineering, right? So how do we, now we start telling students, educating students how to use, how to formulate questions so that ChatGPT returns value to them. I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's a huge challenge, of course, and we'll maybe come back in the discussion if we have to. I think that's that part of the story. So my use scenario of knowledge technologies is a little bit different, but can be combined. So I'm more interested in thinking about a use scenario where the knowledge source itself is more open, full stop, to everybody, including us as teachers and designers and students, our students. So it's not closed, and it may well have this open knowledge base may well have a chatbot interface. As I said, knowledge technologies, particularly the kinds I'll be going a bit into more depth in a minute, are the key technology that sits behind most chatbots, other than the stupidly pre-programmed ones, which we are not very interesting. And so we may still have that chat interface or AR and virtual reality interface, whatever that builds a user's knowledge. But also, because now the knowledge graph is open, we can offer additional access to it, namely through interfaces that we design or people design and then commercial or non-commercially use. Because this is open, there can be a whole range of applications, not just a single interface. And of course, also ChatGPT you can access now via APIs, and you've got to pay for that. So in that sense, it's technically open, but not in the full sense. It's in my scenario and use of knowledge technologies, the knowledge base is also epistemically open, in the sense that we, again, and that includes teachers, students, designers, can also add to the knowledge graph directly, to the knowledge base directly, right? And hence have more control over what's in there, perhaps quality control, and also be, just have a more shared ownership of the knowledge base, right? So the tasks then increase, or it can be additional ones in addition to question engineering, which may still be, something we need to get better at and tell students how to do when they interact with the chatbot that's knowledge driven. We can also now, look at query engineering and at knowledge engineering, as it were, as as tasks that are accessible also to our students. So far, so abstract. So let me show you now a definition of a knowledge graph as a key technology that is sort of emerging from research on semantic web and its use. So at the heart of a knowledge graph, here it says, is a knowledge model, a collection of interlinked description of concepts, entities, relationships, and events. Sounds like something like a concept map, doesn't it? At knowledge graph, put data in context via linking and semantic metadata, and this way provide a framework for various things, such as data integration, unification, new forms of analytics, etc. So that's one of the less technical definitions. Some examples what a knowledge graph might look like as a graph. It's not a graph. In the different definition down here, you don't see that it has to look like a graph as a graphics, right? The way that the meaning of graph in this definition is a purely formal and mathematical one. It's just a set of interlinked resources. But of course, we can visualize a knowledge graph at any time as a network, as a concept map, as a node-linked node map. And that's convenient, but it's not at all essential, right? Often confused initially and quite confusing, right? So if I say knowledge graph, you likely think, may look like a concept map. but that's just one of the many ways one can, render or represent a knowledge graph. Anyway, having it in graphical form or pseudo-graphical form is nice. So, for instance, here's an example for a made-up knowledge graph from a museum. How it would a museum like the Louvre may store, and have information about its most famous picture, the Mona Lisa, right? And it may represent the knowledge around that resource, may be represented by linking it to who is the painter, Da Vinci, who is the curator currently responsible for that resource in the museum. What are books on the matter? What are films and pictures? What do other museums have on Da Vinci, Mona Lisa, etc.? That's all. That can all be conveniently expressed as a node link node structure, which is most simple approximation a knowledge graph. Turns out that another use of semantic technologies and knowledge graphs in particular are museums and heritage organizations, right? So many museums around the world represent their curated assets as a knowledge graph and share them with other museums and make them the backbone of their websites and for virtual visitors and such, and for research. Another example is sort of also more mocked up than real, is a knowledge graph around a pharmacological experiment in a lab, maybe a university lab, where a researcher works on a new drug for a certain disease, and that researcher runs experiments and publishes on them, and of course there's a team of them, and so he or she is connected to other researchers, stuff like that. So we can also represent in knowledge graph social relations, and that's a whole subsection, and that's why, for instance, Facebook is also interested in, and social media providers are using knowledge graphs because they're also modeling social relations between users and such. Right. So that's the first approximation, and it's really nice that knowledge graphs come with a almost natural visual representation, which looks like a concept map, mind map, that sort of thing. I stop here for a moment, and do you have any questions up to anything, up to what I said so far? Anything particular that you find so confusing that it really might stop you from continue listening to me or getting anything out of listening to me, as I will next show you examples for how knowledge graph can be used by students and then by instruction design, by learning designers. Any question at all? Chat or voice?
Muted. I got a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter. Sorry. Fascinating stuff. And this is kind of a little bit off topic, perhaps. But one of the things that I've found challenging in my own work is constructing the knowledge graphs. Do you have a preference for the kind of tools that you use for that purpose? Like, do you use RStudio or something like that?
Yeah, I use RStudio indeed.
Okay.
It's a good question and a good answer, Keith, because why would you not? But in principle, and to generalize, I guess the answer a bit for others who are have to look into authoring knowledge graphs or so. In principle, of course, you can just use any plain text editor, right? Because it's the knowledge graph, as an information structure, is just plain text, right? Mm. So, but often what I do is, and I think others do, I draw something with the concept mapping tool first. Yep. To start with the visual, like I use CMap tools or MindMeister or whatnot, doesn't really matter. I prefer CMap tools because it actually draws labeled links, right? And then I'll start putting it into more textual format, because then I can put that into a database. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I'll mention the technology stack in the end that I use, and you know, that's just one instance. All right.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Peter, this may not be the right time to ask this question, but how much knowledge of coding or any like technical programming is required to to be able to use this?
Yeah, it's a good question. Essentially none. So it's really not a coding issue. It's really more on the level of expressing knowledge. You know, basically, Kashmira, I guess the technical sort of expertise is the same as creating metadata on learning resources, right? So if you, for instance, describe what's in a video around, you know, let's say, you know, whatever, photosynthesis, right? And as a learning designer, you would like to index that video in your course or resources as one of the learning resources, you're more likely than not will find yourself describing the content of the video, what's in it, who created it, how long it is, what's the average, you know, what's the prerequisite, is this for undergraduate, is this for graduate course, that kind of stuff, right? So it's basically the same kind of skills that need to go into writing metadata on learning resources, be those in book form, text form, internet form, or otherwise. Does that answer your question a bit? Yeah. And the tools, there are no particular tools needed. So that I generally use a plain text editor. I use the plain text editor on RStudio because I do other stuff with RStudio. But that is, you know, for the core business, it's just a plain text editor, not Word or so. That's even too high tech already. Not Google Docs. They add stuff. That's not just a plain text editor.
No, that's great. I think, Peter, just a comment as well. And my question or comment is similar to what Adrian Norman has mentioned in the chat as well. And I think it's definitely, I'll be keen to see, and hopefully it's in the next part of your session as well, that alignment with students and their knowledge building, their creation. I think that mapping part is interesting.
Yeah. Those are good. Yeah. So any pedagogy that goes into knowledge building, reasoning, right? So you know, argument for identifying and formulating arguments, identifying and formulating links between pieces of knowledge or information that are distributed. Are exactly the kind of things that this kind of technology is quite good at, because it all is about is, you know, describing resources, which might be knowledge pieces, and describing relations between resources, right? So, you know, and so maybe I go on, because then, you know, at least go on with the first concrete example, and that bit is student oriented, and might make a bit of this a bit more concrete. So my use scenario one is a student using an interactive concept mapping application, like, you know, MindMeister or CMap tools. And we, you know, like in chemistry in particular, for instance, it was also in business education, and in medicine, you see a lot of papers written on engaging students in concept mapping. So that's nothing new there, very established, and definitely, you know, ticks a lot of boxes with knowledge construction and et cetera, deep learning, and, you know, has a long story in education psychology as well, and attracted like literally thousands of studies. And so the new thing here is that, you know, the use scenario contains a knowledge graph, a large one and an existing one, namely DBpedia, as the knowledge resource, right? So conceptually, what this does is it uses the knowledge from Wikipedia, that's in Wikipedia, or a part of Wikipedia, puts that knowledge into a knowledge graph. That's like, you know, that people behind ChatGPT do too, but they use machine learning methods. And these guys do too. And then we hook up the student with a web app to this knowledge resource. And the web app, in our case, will be a concept mapping tool. Before I show you the web app, just quickly will show you what DBpedia is, in case you haven't seen or encountered DBpedia. So DBpedia is, if you want, the semantic version of Wikipedia, or if that is too abstract for you, it would be for me. DBpedia a form to query the knowledge in Wikipedia or the information in Wikipedia rather than having to read the pages, right? So the main way we use the knowledge in Wikipedia is by reading Wikipedia pages, right? Of which there are millions. And that's good, but it's limited, because if I have, questions that are going across a number of pages, then this reading will take a lot of time, and maybe a lot of stuff on all of these pages that I'm not interested in. I'm looking for specific information, right? That's distributed across maybe thousands of Wikipedia pages. So how do you do that? Well, yeah, that your answer is DBpedia. We'll quickly show you DBpedia, also one of those things that are not really, have been around for a while and not very well known, but are worth knowing. So DBpedia currently stores, that's like maybe a couple of months ago, the number increases constantly. DBpedia describes about 5 million things that are described on Wikipedia by people. Among them, about 800,000 places, 400,000 pieces of creative arts, right? So, Wikipedia is super good on places, historic sites, and sports and music and kind of stuff. It may not always be the greatest resource for scientific things, but in particular in information science, computer science, it's actually very good. And better than anything else, because it's always up to date, right? Anyway, that's just the English version. The international version describes around 40 million things currently, in a way so that we can, ask DBpedia to tell us more about those things and how they are related to each other. I just put up the technical sort of super high infrastructure just to show you that, these odd acronyms from the solution stack I showed you before, right? Like RDF, SparkQL. See, they come up here again, right? So DBpedia uses semantic technologies, the semantic technology stack, to make the knowledge in Wikipedia or the information in Wikipedia more accessible, in particular also more accessible to humans who want to have, query that knowledge rather than reading all the pages, which sometimes is impossible just because of the sheer scope, but also accessible to machines, right, to computers. So many of the tour guides, the tourist guides that, you hold your phone over a building in Paris, the Eiffel Tower, and then you get from your phone app your virtual tour guide, which is kind of an AR application, augmented reality application. Maybe your tour guide, your virtual one, then tells you information about the Eiffel Tower. More likely than not, that tour guide uses DBpedia as the knowledge resource, right? So it's used a lot for these heritage sites and for city tours and the likes, because Wikipedia really has a lot of information about buildings, places, locations, cities, and so forth. And so, why put that into my city guide application anew when I can use DBpedia to provide me with the knowledge that I need, right? We can even have a quick look at how to use DBpedia. I'm a strong believer in showing occasionally things that not only on slides, but that they actually exist. So if you go to the links on the slides, and I'm sure Kashmir can make them available. If you go to DBpedia and to the resource page, you'll find online access page, and we'll click on online databases. So we want to talk directly to DBpedia now. And it does us the favor of having some pre-canned queries, which we can run live. My preferred query is the following, and this query will go against Wikipedia, okay? It's this one here. I want to know about the names of soccer players who were born in a country with more than 10 million inhabitants, who played as goalkeeper for a club that has a stadium with more than 30,000 seats, and whose club country was different from the birth country of those players. Okay, now I want you to imagine for a moment how you would do this just using Wikipedia, right? Yeah, and I don't want an answer from you because, well, other than saying, well, that'll take me a while. You would be right. Now, see, with DBpedia, we can basically say, to run this as a query against it. So if we click on this, I think we'll get to the query interface, right? I don't, and no examples needed. Just say, I should have said go, so that actually computes. It's very fast, and basically this is the query against DBpedia, and these are the results. So we see there are about 50 players that fulfill this criteria. Now there's garbage in here, right? Because for Wikipedia, as for any other DBpedia, which is dependent on Wikipedia, there is garbage in there, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So for instance, there's a stadium in North Yorkshire that seems to have have place for 3.5 million people. That's unlikely. Somebody made a mistake here describing that stadium on the Wikipedia page of the Yorkshire Stadium. But other than that, we can now go and look at these players and see what Wikipedia would else know about them, right? And here's what it has on that player, just one of them, right? So that's the background knowledge behind that's available on Wikipedia about this player. I told you it's really great on sport and sport events and everything around sports, in addition to places and sites. All right, so that's just to prove, that we can get don't have to read through about 100,000 pages to get an answer to a fairly complex question that links together many things within milliseconds, right? And of course, I could query this through my app, which I'm showing you next, right? This is not necessarily only an interface for a human, but also for a machine. So how is that now used for an educational application? A nice example is, which I won't show you now, but I can show it to you quickly, runs over here. So this is live. This is an application, a web app called Concept Minds. That's now a commercial product. And what it does is exactly this scenario. It has this concept mapping interface where users can create notes and links. If I click on any of the links, it provides me with additional information over here. But it also provides me with additional suggestions as for information. And those additional suggestions come to a large part from Wikipedia, right? Which actually come from DBpedia. And then, and then a link, the app provides a link to the Wikipedia page, which is more human readable. So this is a concept map about some typical undergraduate medical course about physiology, biochemistry. And whenever I click on any of these links, like notes, you see that down here, the display gets updated with new, and it sort of looks on various internet resources and comes back with suggestions live in real time, what else might be relevant. And I can drag this into the net and make it part of my net and then start linking. And in the smarter version, I think you have to pay extra. The concept mapping tool will itself visualize links to the extent that it finds them already in the descriptions of the nodes, including those nodes that are based on a recent query, on a real-time query. Now, this might give you a bit of an idea how to make a knowledge graph, which is it's a huge one, right? Useful for students. Yeah, this is now a commercial product called contextminds.com, and they target the educational market in particular, but also others. So that's this app. It's very, it's focused and does a good job at this. Let students develop a concept map. They do this by they get help by getting hints based on live searches as they construct the concept map. Live searches based on internet content. The primary source for the content is DBpedia. and then they get pointed to the Wikipedia pages that are the human readable form of DBpedia. Does that make it a bit clearer to you how one can create use for students, pedagogically defendable use, I guess, for students out of a knowledge graph?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So each of those colorful kind of buttons on this map here is a link,
Yeah,
to a piece of information, and they can be populated by the suggestions down the bottom. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So with those suggestions down the bottom, you were saying they are generated from like live searches, but
Yep.
is there a sort of a sorting process for what appears at the bottom of the page? Is there like a relevance?
What can filter them? I think you can influence on the settings, which kind of search engine you prefer. So maybe we say, well, I don't want to have Wikipedia as the primary one, make that secondary. They since recently have a ChatGPT interface, right? So also they use ChatGPT as a suggestion tool.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. Does it make it clearer, Sally? Yeah. So to some extent, you can have preferences, but of course, this is not an open knowledge graph in the full sense where you or I or a teacher, you as a designer or I as a teacher have control over. We still build on stuff that's out there, right? Which has its pros and cons. The pros is, oh, they are out there already. I don't have to construct the knowledge graph, this knowledge base myself, which would be quite a challenge. But secondly, the drawback is, I have not that much control over the content because it's not my content, right? Yeah, and that of course needs to be navigated. But users can add, and teachers can add their own content, right? I can at any point and say, I either want to create a new link or I want to create a new node. I can want to create a new concept, right? And over that, of course, they have full control. Yeah.
So for students, you could get them offer one of these or get them to build one themselves as a thing to explore.
Yeah, or half full. Yeah, start small. This is a very big one already. I think this is built by a medical expert for teaching.
Okay.
But he or she could hide
20%,
20%, 30%. Yeah. Yeah. All right. This time passes quickly. I just want to give you at least an idea how to make this technology also useful. And you just have to invite me again, or I'm also run workshops on this specifically from a number of angles. So let me just give you at least an idea how this could also be used for this technology can also be used for learning designers, right? And so the scenario here is really, one a bit similar to Wikipedia and DBpedia. So what one could imagine, and I only have developed the backend in a first approximation, but one could imagine as designers, a designer or designers, articulating their design knowledge, the rationale behind the course, or a web app or whatever. It could be also education technologies designers, articulating their design elements, etc., rationale decisions on something like a Wikimedium. Could also be Google Docs or whatever, something that is easily shared, SharePoint documents or such, if it's more intranet stuff rather than internet stuff. And then, so having sort of a textual, etc., graphical representation, like a wiki page or a Google Doc, or a network of them, but also then have a description, a semantic description, have semantic data on those pages. And the semantic data make it easier for other designers to find, and people in generally interested, again, on the internet or extranet, on the internet or intranet or internet, to find design solutions. Might also make easier for having tools such as apps that help in the future designed and meant to help designers do their work. Also have computers providing computers with access, that is, software applications with access to the knowledge, right? So we in in knowledge graphs, we always think about two kinds of users, human users and machines, right? Computers, right? And we want to make human-generated knowledge available and share with other humans and with machines, because the world we are going towards or are in already is a hybrid, is a way of hybrid problem solving, right? And with ChatGPT, we made, maybe a step in the too much towards the machine solution already. But that remains to be seen. And so, if you think about just 2 minutes and then I'll stop. If you think about, what goes into design knowledge, it's actually quite a big network of knowledge that goes into any design or design research project. I'm currently mainly working on a first solution to describe design research projects. But of course, that has a big part of that is the design process itself, right? Without the research necessarily. With research, I mean mainly evaluation research, right? So how does the design work out and with students, etc. But even on a very high level, it's already means to combine problem analysis with design process, maybe with knowledge bases existing on previous designs, but also instruction design theory and then domain theory, right? From medical education, business education, engineering education. Those things are not all equal and should not be treated equal. If we drill down a step, then the picture becomes even more networked and differentiated, even just on a high level to describe a design process of any kind, EDDI or whatnot. You have to think about design iterations. You have to think about what the artifacts generated in the design process. I call them design models. You have to think about the design method, right? EDDI is not very specific, so are you using FORCI ID or something more that's more helping with actual design, not just the process? Not that is unimportant. There might be even design theory that should be used, etc. And then we have, of course, the artifacts, right? We may have technological objects and learning environments as outcomes of the design process. And so you see where this is going, because I'm using the notion of graphs, right, of node link node structures. What I'm strongly suggesting is that knowledge graphs are a very good match and currently likely the best match technologically seen to represent design knowledge, educational design knowledge on computers and with databases, right? And so what I'm working on is, for example, is to describe designs such as an interface for a student around a simulation, describe that part of it as a design iteration. It's not perfect yet, and then describe as a knowledge graph what are the components, what are the elements, what's the design theory idea behind this. So this looks then like in the next step it looks like something where we combine content descriptions with design process. And this answers one of the questions, how do you, what's technically needed? So I'm basically adding metadata here to educational designs, and the metadata are just used as spreadsheet or a plain text editor. Here's a table where I express that knowledge in subject, predicate, object form, node, link node form, right? So it's a knowledge graph, just not graphical one, but I, of course, can easily turn that into a graphical representation. But importantly, we have content descriptions and the design process described in the design knowledge graph, right? And we do so using terminologies which are established as much as possibly established. For instance, always using Dublin Core, minimally Dublin Core, better Dublin terms to add metadata about the content, or using schema.org to describe content, right? Which schema.org, Dublin is used since 50 years, I believe. Schema is now the dominating meta language for web content since 10 years. Millions of web pages use schema.org to describe their content in semantic terms. And then it's really, it's really not that big a step, and I'll end with that, is to then put that onto a database server. If you have it in this form, you can directly import it into a database server. and then use their databases for internet on the intranet. So for instance, along with SharePoint or Canvas or whatever one uses to store the actual content, and or make it available on the internet as knowledge that is accessible now on scale. That's I have an implementation for that. So there's a query interface that's again SparkQL. Now it asks for design information. You can look at that graphically, right? That's also from the database server. Now it looks like a map, like a concept map again. But now it's design knowledge, right? Edited locally by people rather than drawn from Wikipedia and such. This is locally created knowledge, obviously. That's pretty much it. The last thing I want to show, if you're interested in any of the, anything that might get you a bit further, there are some good books on available. So Knowledge Graphs has a number of books on it. This is a recent one that's very small, just 80 pages, and very concrete. And then sort of a Bible is a semantic web for the working ontologist. Likely not a title you would find right away, but believe me, this is a brilliant book on all things semantic web. Yeah, well, that's it for what I want to say. Thanks. Happy to answer some questions or listen to your comments.
Thank you so much, Peter, for the presentation. It's definitely provided a different lens as well in terms of how knowledge is constructed and some frameworks around that as well. I'm just going to open the floor to any questions or comments. I've got a couple with me as well, and I'm aware that we've only got a few minutes left for today's session.
So Leon, already we have some questions in the chat. So Adrian asked, what educational problem is this approach addressing?
Well, it's completely up to you. That's pretty much any. That depends on the particular application. So, for instance, I use it to help my students go deeper with literature reviews and literature analysis, right? So my PhD students and master's research students, I'll sort of provide them with the means to express knowledge about current research and past research in forms of knowledge graphs, so that that the literature review becomes more systematic, but also more inspectable and cruciable by others.
So Peter, would I be right in saying that this alternative way of inspecting knowledge or representing knowledge, it has a teaching application? Because what you described just then is an approach to for teaching.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you can use it as a backend to concept mapping, right? So if you read the literature on concept mapping and what teachers find hard about concept maps is to create the map, the reference map, right, or the initial content for the nodes and the link types, right, to build the kit. And of course, with this kind of approach, you can use, as illustrated by concept, what was it, Mind application. You can make it much easier for a teacher to come up with her first, sort of expert solution, right, or such. Yeah, one of the just wanted to highlight that Wikipedia is just an example. It's much under estimated with respect to its epistemic qualities, right? It's now, numerous studies that shows it's as good, if not better, than all of the established encyclopedias. It's certainly more up to date than any of them. So I wouldn't worry that much about the quality of knowledge on Wikipedia. In particular, the objectivity is always an ideal and not it's a process, not an endpoint. And Wikipedia makes quite clear that the knowledge on it is relative to what its contributors say, right? But the knowledge on any encyclopedia is relative to what its contributors say. But of course, you can hook it up with any knowledge base or knowledge graph that fulfills fulfills the requirements of a knowledge graph. That is, it contains content and the description of a computer interpretable of a computer interpretable interpretation of the content, i.e., metadata. And if you have something like a museum that offers its collection as a knowledge graph, well, then you can hook up to that knowledge graph and do something in arts history, culture, with a much more controlled knowledge graph. That's totally a good idea. Yeah.
Can I just
Sorry, Sally, I'm just going to interrupt just shortly because we know it's like it's 1 o'clock. I just want to just say this way for those who have come. Thank you so much, and I want to thank Peter as well for this presentation. I'm just very Peter, if you're able to stay for the next few minutes, I'm sure there are a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
I
We'll
can.
stop the recording.
Okay,
We'll
wait a
stop the
bit more.
recording, and Sally, so there'll be opportunities to speak to Peter as well. But for now, look, let's everyone give a warm, applause to Peter as well.
Virtual
It's actually
applause.
quite
Thank you very
interesting.
much.
I've got a couple of questions as well for personalized learning with this. It's
Go
quite
ahead.
interesting. So
Yeah.
thanks everybody. And just if you do need to go, please go. But Peter will be also staying around for the next few minutes as well. You've got some comments and questions.
Yeah.
Thanks
Also
everyone.
happy to answer email.